Hello there, you're probably wondering where I am. I'm in the white space, which is not a Starbucks like I originally thought. Well, what am I doing here? I'm here to talk to you about one of the most unique RPGs I've played in the last few years. Not that one, not that one, not that one either. I'm talking about Omori, which was a game released at the end of 2020 and might just be one of the best RPG experiences I've ever had. Amory was first announced in 2014 and had a very weird trailer that showed a very retro and sketch-like art style. The gameplay was very reminiscent of Earthbound. This pulled in a lot of people who were very interested in seeing this game come to fruition. There was a Kickstarter campaign. It had a goal of $22,000 and let's see, it brought in almost 10 times that goal. It's safe to say people were hyped about this game. The money went to good use because the original trailer shown had very different gameplay and drawings than the final version, but that was at the cost of spending more than 6 years in production. But it was all worth it because the final trailer shown in 2020 was an absolute trip. It showed much more improved animation and some fantastic art. Yeah, this game is also a psychological horror with some extremely dark themes and visuals. But look how much fun they're having, friendship! But anyway, after all this time, the game finally released during Christmas of 2020. That's exactly what I want under the Christmas tree, some childhood trauma. It was met with some absolutely glowing reviews and countless theories and speculation about the symbolism and messages being presented in the game. I mean, I got a few theories. Rearrange the letters in Mori around and what do you get? Morio. This game is a Mario prequel. Another theory. What's Kanye's middle name? Omori. This game tells the story of Kanye if he was white. Well, that's the backstory of the game. I should probably talk about the actual game now. It's not car lesbians. Do I need to say more? Omori begins by presenting itself as this lonely and mysterious game, with you being introduced to the White Room, a place full of, kitty. In here, you can't really do much, but you can look at a sketchbook and use your laptop. Does he have the hub open? Nope, it's just pain. After that, you get a knife, and you get attacked by some sperm hands. Well, it's time to finally leave the white space and go into the outside. I've heard acid trips are just like this. Here's where you meet your friends, Kel, Aubrey, and Hiro. They tell you they have to meet up with other friends at a picnic. So you head off into the forest to find your other friends, Basil and Mari. This game does a really good job at writing all these characters and making them each feel unique. The dialogue with them is also very entertaining and actually quite funny at times, which I really didn't expect from a game like this. But now you're all gonna go to Basil's house because apparently he's also a 12-year-old boy who can afford to take out a mortgage. This is also where you get introduced to the battle system, which relies a lot on the character's emotions such as anger, sadness, or happiness. And depression! Now actually, this is one of the biggest surprises to me in this game, is just how well done the battle system is. Yeah, it's very reminiscent of Earthbound, but the whole emotion factor changes things up a lot. You can give an emotion to someone in your party, or you can give it to your opponent. It adds another factor to think about during fights, and can be used to your advantage. The only thing I will say is that it's not very useful in most fights you have. The only fights where emotions really matter is boss fights, but when emotions come into play, they are a very fun mechanic. It really makes you think which emotion will be more useful in a fight, like enragement or depression. Well, now you've made your way to Basil's house. Here you have a nice old time where you look at a photo album with pictures of you and your friends having a good time. Man, this game is just a nice and peaceful experience. It's just friends going on an adventure in a magical world. Wait, what other genre is it? Oh yeah, it's a horror game. I almost forgot. Here's where the f***ery starts. The game lures you into a false sense of security for the first 40 minutes or so, but then it reminds you of the content warning that is literally the first thing you see when you open the game. And now you're back in the White Room. Only this time there is a horrific creature in your sketchbook and there is no exit. Guess that's the end of the game. I had a lot of fun. Oh. What is it? I would have said military extraction, but that works too. Yeah, here's where the game really gets started. Omori stabs himself and then you're taken to the character naming screen. Yeah, this dude's name is not actually Omori, it's Sunny, but that doesn't look as cool on a crew neck. I never really understood why they let you name the character, since naming him something other than Sunny kinda takes you out of the immersion, but it's not a big deal. Sunny wakes up in the real world since the other one was just a dream, and yeah, he should have stayed asleep. The real world is terrifying. There's glowing red lights outside, demons outside his front door and in the bathroom. I'm really missing that weird ass cat. And also he gets confronted by a weird creature called something. You just had to get some steak, didn't you, Sunny? Some good steak. But after all that, you go back to the dream world. Now you actually have a game of Hangman that you need to complete by finding keyboard pieces sprinkled throughout the world. Because now it's time for the main dream world adventure to begin. Find this fucker. Now it's important to remember that there's two worlds, the dream world and the outside world. The Dream World 1 follows the story of Amory and his friends trying to find their friend Basil after he disappears. The Real World 1 involves Omori and Basil dealing with the guilt of their horrible actions. Quite a tone shift. Now this game has gotten a lot of praise for its handling of horror elements. I've even seen it go as far to be compared to Doki Doki Literature Club, and I understand the comparisons, but I don't think this game can be compared to any other game like that. There's no anime girls, but mostly because the way this game handles horror is much more different than any other game like this. Something like Doki Doki turns into a horror game much later into the game, and for the rest of it, it seems like a fairly innocent game, all things considered. Omori, on the other hand, uses the horror and RPG elements as two sides of the same coin. For a good majority of the game, and almost all the game actually, it's a straight up classic RPG. You actually have to put in some thought into your moves and items and all that stuff, but the horror is only added in at certain points that are used to move the story along and doesn't make it feel like some innocent game that's gonna turn into a disturbing mess later on. Because it does that from the start. Yeah, the moment you start playing Omori, you already know something isn't right. It's a psychological horror. It's not supposed to be a game where you're just waiting for something bad to happen. Because while you play this game, you will more than likely be fully invested in the dream world, even though there is obviously something much more sinister at play. And the way the game manages to do that is by doing an amazing job at fully fleshing out this world with some wonderfully written characters, and even some great side characters. They keep me invested in wanting to find out more about this fantasy world. Even the enemies themselves are really creative. They even have some dial-up phones and other non-sentient creatures fighting against you. It's done really well, but f*** the pedo bears. I don't think I'll ever mentally recover. This rant has nothing to do with what I've been talking about, but why is there a dungeon full of pedo bears? They are one of the most annoying enemies in the game and are an absolute pain in the ass to beat. You're probably thinking, oh okay, just run away. No, you can't do that, because the minute you walk into the room, you are fucked. There is no way of getting through them, so you have to fight all 10 of them. Even if you die, you are thrown right back into the fight you just lost, so you are forced to repeat the cycle until you either load a previous save or can beat all 10 of them. And me, being the expert gamer I am, made the brave choice of reloading my save like a pussy. I will not be dealing with the consequences of my actions. So yeah, them. But besides that, the rest of the game is fairly challenging without being impossible. And this is pretty important because in a game that is so story dependent as Omori is, it's pretty relieving that not much grinding has to be done in this game in order to get through it. It keeps me focused on the story, and the RPG is just a fun aspect of it. The other part of the game that is pretty important are the boss fights. There's a couple of them and they're all really well done and make use of the emotion mechanic perfectly. Some of them are way more annoying than others, but for the most part, if you learn how they operate, you should be able to beat them quite easily. Except for this whale. I have personally started a pro-smiling whale extinction foundation because of this whale. It's a money laundering scheme. But all things considered, the gameplay in Omori is super well done and is just as engaging as the story is. The only real negative I have about it are the side quests. The side quests are so boring and uninteresting to me. Most of them just have to do with finding something and giving them to the person that asked for it. There's a few skills you can only get from doing these side quests, but most of the time it's not worth it. You're not going to get anything of value from doing any of them. But luckily they're all optional and just in case you want to spend more time in the dream world. You can meet some cool characters, but that's about it. Well, that just about covers everything about the gameplay of Omori. It's very good. I came in here thinking I was going to play another indie RPG where the gameplay is the least interesting part about it. But I was wrong. The gameplay is very engaging and fun and kept me entertained. But that's not what makes Omori special. What does make Omori special is... at least there's no pedo bears. Omori tells a very dark and disturbing story about what Sunny and his friends have gone through in their childhood. This section is going to be filled with spoilers, so if you want to avoid them, go to this timestamp. So what exactly is the difference between Omori and Sunny? I named them Kanye, so I have no idea. But it's important to know that Sunny is an actual person, while Omori is just what Sunny sees himself as in the dream world. But still, even though he's in a dream world, he gets terrorized by a figure called Something in the real world. This creature appears at various times in the story, and for most of it, it's not really explained what the strange creature is. until the end. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. To truly understand what the story the game is telling, we have to go to the outside world. It's here where we find out what's actually going on. So it turns out that Sunny and his friends don't talk to each other anymore ever since the death of Mari, Sunny's sister. This explains why Mari never accompanies them throughout the dream world and just pops up at different points. Aubrey has turned into a rebellious teenager who is dealt with accordingly, which is by a good old-fashioned love stabbing. Oh really, you're gonna complain Sunny has a knife when you literally walk around with something that would put you on a no-fly list. But sure, complain about how all your friends have turned into terrible people when you walk around with something that would put you in a coma with one swing. But anyway, most of the time spent in the outside world is spent with dealing with Basil, who has blocked out the rest of the friend group kinda like Sunny has. All of this changes when all their friends find out that Sunny is moving, but it's through these days spent interacting with all the friends again where we learn the truth about why the friend group split up and what exactly the meaning of this world Sunny goes to in his dreams is. I don't know how, but something tells me the pedo bears were involved. So what exactly happened? Well, when you reach the end of the game, you go into something called the Black Space. It's here in the Black Space where you enter this very morbid and twisted world filled with disturbing images and visuals, including Basil getting decapitated, beat to death by his own friends, and worst of all, getting turned into a watermelon. Oh perfect, I needed something to eat with my steak. All of this leads into a whole area where you have to find a set of pictures taken during the night of Maury's death, where it's revealed that Sunny pushed his sister down the stairs, killing her. That's tough, but I would have survived that. I'm just built different. I did not survive that. And it also turns out that Basil also knew about this, so him and Sunny made it look like suicide, which is what all their friends think is what happened. The whole story that's being told is supposed to represent Sunny dealing with the guilt of what he's done and the consequences of his actions. Which is why you see so many disturbing visuals like the something creature, which as it turns out is actually just Mari, and him seeing it everywhere serves as a reminder of what he's done. But the story doesn't end there, because the importance of Basil is also necessary to understand. Basil is basically also going through the same thing Sunny is, which is why he's the only character that can see something. It's why he disappears so much throughout the dream world and eventually everyone forgets about him. It's really one of the most brilliant parts of the game in my opinion, the parallels between the real world and the dream world that are just put in there so subtly. It's something that once you notice, you just think to yourself, wow, that's crazy how I didn't notice that earlier. The game also uses intense symbolism, using disturbing images of hands and Sunny getting his fingers cut off to represent how horrible he felt after what he did with his hands when he pushed his sister. The whole character of Omori is symbolism too. Omori is this very twisted and much colder version of the real life counterpart that Sunny has to face as the final boss fight. The game has multiple endings and routes, with the bad ending being incredibly dark and the good one being a very uplifting moment. It's just that so much about this game is such a breath of fresh air from other indie games that also tackle mental issues. I'm not saying those other games are bad, it's nothing like that at all, it's just more so that Omori has a very unique form of storytelling. The heavy symbolism and not holding the player's hand throughout the story is pretty different from other games in this style. Even the more RPG heavy parts of the games were so well done that I completely forgot what type of game this was. It just speaks to how all the time spent on this game was really worth it, and I think anyone would happily wait 7 years if they knew the game would turn out this amazingly. Omori is definitely one of the most memorable RPGs and psychological horrors I've ever played. If you're interested in playing this game, I purposely left out some details so this game could still become a really enjoyable experience. So that's Omori, an absolutely brilliant RPG and an amazing game in general. I think everyone should try playing it. I had a super fun time, and at least I don't have to deal with that bear dungeon ever again. Oh no. I learned my mistakes, I won't do that again. But I'm not a bitch, so open it! Hell yeah!